Hello and welcome to Dragon Puppet. My name is Thomas and for today's Roleplay Rations we have Elven Journeybread. Roleplay Rations is a series where we look at fictional food and drink and how to bring it into your games to add to the fun and the immersion. Journeybread seemed like the perfect place to start the series, so let's crack on. Non-perishable bread or crackers like hardtack have been used in the real world for centuries by sailors, soldiers and travellers on long journeys. And in many fantasy settings, this historical food has a magical twist. Journeybread or Elven bread appears in many high fantasy settings, but as with so many fantasy tropes, it first appeared in Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, where it's known as Lembas, which translates to way bread or journey bread in Elvish. Thanks to Legolas, most of us already know the main properties of Lembas.
One small bite is enough to fill the stomach of a grown man.
These properties alone are pretty impressive, but in the books we learn that it does more than just fill a tummy. Frodo felt that it fed the will and gave strength to endure. This spiritual boost was expanded upon later, where it's revealed that if mortals consume too much Lembas, they will grow weary of mortality and will want to live among the elves. Another key aspect of Lembas is the secrecy surrounding its recipe. Elves very rarely shared Lembas with other races and certainly never told them how it was made. This is why it's so significant when the elves of Lothlorien share Lembas with the Fellowship. Tolkien did elaborate on the origin of Lembas, saying that the secret of its creation was given to the elves by Yavanna, who is basically one of the gods of the Lord of the Rings world. The secretive key ingredient to Lembas is a type of grain that only grows in the Undying Lands, which does explain its spiritual properties. Most accounts describe Lembas as mostly pleasant and sometimes sweet, unless the creature has been tainted by evil, in which case it will find it quite unpalatable. Tolkien's inspiration from Lembas came partly from the Catholic tradition of sacramental bread, consumed during Holy Communion. Tolkien was a practicing Roman Catholic, so he would have taken part in Holy Communion hundreds of times over the course of his life. In Holy Communion, small wafers of bread are consumed that Catholics believe have been changed into the body of Christ through a ritual. So it might be from here that Tolkien got the idea for a type of bread that when consumed imbues people with the divine, and not only nourishes the body but also the soul. Tolkien even mentioned this in one of his letters, addressing the fact that Lembas could be a not so subtle nod to his Catholic roots. But it's not just Middle-earth. A version of Journeybread can be found in almost every high fantasy setting. In Dungeons & Dragons, we can find it mentioned in the 4th edition Player's Handbook, where it's called Journeybread. And although the recipe is still a closely guarded secret, the Elves of the Forgotten Realms do share the bread itself with other races. In fact, it can be purchased by anybody in Aurora's Whole Realms catalogue. Here, Journeybread appears to cover a range of long-lasting breads, including Elven bread. In Pathfinder, the Elves of Golarion are known to make way bread, sometimes called walk bread, again sharing the properties of Tolkien's Lembas. I even managed to find mentions of Elven way bread in some Warhammer Fantasy novels, where it's made by the Elves of Uthwan. This series is all about using food and drink to improve the immersion in your games, and if you're playing in a high fantasy setting, Journeybread is probably one of the best foods to do this. If you're short on time or just not into baking, you could grab something off the shelf like biscuits or crackers and wrap them in some cloth. It's not perfect, but role-playing is all about using your imagination anyway. If you have a little more time, you can make your own. There are loads of recipes online. I'll leave some links in the description. There's also a recipe in Heroes Feast, which is the official D&D cookbook, and the Geeky Chef cookbook also has a Journeybread recipe. But my favourite Journeybread recipe is from a YouTuber called Jet Set Fork. Her recipe ticks all the boxes for me. It looks good, it tastes great, and it fills me up. It's even vegan friendly, which makes sense for Peter Jackson's interpretation of the Elven diet. Baking is definitely not one of my strengths, so my first attempt was a bit messy, but they still tasted great. I experimented a bit with flavour. For one batch I did some grated lemon skin, and you can also swap out the maple syrup for honey. For one batch I just cut them out in squares using a knife, but for the second batch I used an oval cookie cutter, so they're all the same exact shape. I also wanted to really lean into the Elven aesthetic, so I added some Elven runes. These runes could be sculpted in before baking, or added after baking with a food-safe pen or paint. This extra step adds to the look, but it could also add to the in-game use. They could be used as a puzzle, for example. What seemed like a simple gift from a wandering elf may turn out to be a warning or a puzzle or some kind of clue for the party to decipher. If you want to go all out on presentation, you could even try wrapping your bread in some kind of food-safe leaf. I was able to find some banana leaves at my local international food market. After a quick wash in some warm water, they can be wrapped around the bread. This took a little practice, but we got there in the end, and it looks great. You can also just use any food-safe leaf. I found these giant spinach leaves at a supermarket, and they also do the job. A little bit of hemp twine or a wax seal is the finishing touch. And remember, unlike real Lembas, this recipe does have a shelf life. It's still good for up to 3 days if kept refrigerated and in an airtight container. That's it for this video, so next time you run into some elves, why not cook up this iconic fantasy food for your group to enjoy? Nothing beats the magical nourishment of Journeybread for sustaining both the body and spirit on a long adventure. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a like and be sure to subscribe if you want to see more videos about taking your fantasy or sci-fi games to the next level.